people that are like, that was so good, I can't wait for season 2. I actually don't want a season 2.
I don't either. Yeah. It's like,
I want them to, I mean,
story's
and
done.
Reeves already said, it's like, no, Penguin, of course, shows back up in the Batman Part 2. He's seeing it as one big story, which he's calling the Gotham crime story or whatever it is. And Sophia will show up in Batman Part 2 as well.
Yeah. Because they set that
she
up
just
as well,
found out that she's half sister of Catwoman.
Yeah.
So awesome.
Yeah, I kind of think that too. That they spent this entire season very cleverly and brilliantly building up your sympathy for this character, like whom you shouldn't feel sympathetic for, but you do, because he as the character himself is really good at portraying himself as empathetic, when in fact he is not. And they keep throwing things at you to make you doubt that, because he really treats Vic very tenderly right up until the moment he kills him in the last episode.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
It's very much like The Sopranos, which, of course, this is very much a mob story like The Sopranos, where Tony Soprano is a monster. He does terrible things, and yet you're like, I just want Tony to be okay. It's like, I care for this monster. One of the beautiful things about a series like this is that it isn't an origin story, really, but it's just breathing room. Like Bruce Wayne, the Batman is good. I really am not a fan of their take on Bruce Wayne in the Batman. I was like, that's not my version, but still, it's good. He doesn't get as much character building as a Penguin does, because Penguin gets 8 episodes where we really get to spend time with this person. And Batman's just going to be a guy who shows up in 2-hour movies. But how cool would it be if every one of the big villains, including Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman, what if she got her own series that was just one season? A season Scarecrow, season of, well, obviously the Joker, but I have a feeling they're just saving Joker, obviously, for the movies. But I just thought, Colin Farrell, unbelievable. Kristen Milioti, who I've always liked. This is the best thing she's ever done.
That similar to the Lily episode and Agatha, her episode in this show, where we concentrated on her and we get to see her whole backstory.
Yeah.
That was unbelievable. Good. Great.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Jerry wrote me after that one, a little note. He goes, I don't think Arkham Asylum's a very nice place. And they still, by the end, are tipping their hat, literally, to the character from the comics. By the end, he's in a tux. Yeah. He has a top hat. He's not wearing it long, but the whole idea that in his mind, and of course the obsession with Top Hat, the movie, I was like, oh, that's great. The fact that to him, that was the nice epitome of class. And all through the show, everyone that goes to his apartment is comments on how tacky his taste is. The idea that this mook, because that's what he is in this universe, Oswald Cobb, not Cobblepot. I wasn't fond of that.
Yeah.
But the idea that Oswald Cobb has no taste, just like Elvis. If you suddenly get to the top, I love Elvis, but you get to the top, and if you haven't grown up in rarefied, atmosphere, you think, it'd be cool if I get 3 TVs in this room, get 3 TVs right next to each other, and then I want lightning bolts on the wall, lightning bolts. Because Oz is the same. He's like, oh, that means I've made it. Now I'm at top of the world. I've got a view of the city. I'm getting that for you, Ma. And she's vegetable. And he's in his tuxedo, because that's what you do when you're on top. I was like, that's perfect. Yeah. Now where are the umbrellas?
I do think it's interesting in this one that they do a little bit. It seems like they borrow a little bit of, they give a little bit of a nod to the Daredevil's origin for Kingpin, where we get to actually see him as a young man and what he was going through as a kid. However, you see in Daredevil, you see how he gets formed into a sociopathic person because of the shit his father put him through.
Right.
However, Penguin in this show, he's pretty much sociopathic from the drop, and he just, as soon as he has an opportunity to get rid of his brothers, he takes it, not really knowing for sure if it's going to kill them.
That was a passive killing. In other words, he had no idea they would drown, but he was like, I don't really care if they do. He
certainly has no problem with the fact that that's what happened.
He just wants Mom all to himself. They went hardcore Oedipal, and I was like, all right, that's a way to go with Oswald Campbell.
So the sense I got from it is that he wasn't so much forged a villain as that's just kind of who he is. That's his true nature in a way, that he
Yeah.
is sociopathic opportunist
Mm-hmm.
who craves adulation.
The whole thing is that Sophia, for a lot of it, has a point all the way through. And Sophia also has been turned into a very complicated and evil person, but at the same time, you see every step where she was turned into that, including her father foisting the guilt of those murders onto her, making her the hangman, and putting her away, locking her away, and she's out of power, and then she comes back, and the only way to get it is to basically kill off everybody. Wow.
And she is way more sympathetic as a person, because that's actually a different, more like the Kingpin and the Daredevil show, and that what happens to her is what turns her into a villain. Yes. However, at some point in the middle of the season, I was like, this is going to be Sophia's downfall, that she's not as brutal. She's not as because she actually does have the capacity for empathy, whereas Oz does not. If he sees a reason to kill somebody, he's going to take it. But for her, she saw his mom as a victim. She does torture her in that one scene, but she wasn't going to kill his mom.
Well, however, I'd say blowing up that thing in the because other people, innocent people, die.
That is true. Yeah, that's the most vicious thing she does. Yeah.
Yeah.
But other than that,
the thing is, she has
really just killing people who wronged her. Is what she's
every
doing,
time she says to Oz, it's like, or whenever she says to other people, it's like, it is weirdly still your fault, all of this. It's like, yeah, my father did that, but it was spurred on by the stuff that you said. And then it's like, yeah, she almost wants to feel sorry for Oz. And then she's like, that's kind of your thing, isn't it? It's like, it turns out that you're just using that to your advantage as well. Because he flip-flopped even in the show a million times. He's working with Sal Maroni in prison, trying to and he's always just trying to put himself on a better rung. So he's worked himself up from driver, and now he's the king of the city. And you're like, wow, okay.
And I noticed this from the very first episode, that how good he is at conveying empathy to the other characters and to the audience too. It's in his eyes. You see it. It's in Colin Farrell's eyes. That first conversation he has with, Maisel, Joel Maisel, that actor.
Oh, yeah.
That very first scene where he winds up killing him spontaneously. As they're having a conversation, it looks like there's love in his eyes, like going, yeah, I know, I'm with you, kid. Yep.
Oh, right until he disrespects him and calls him Penguin, and he just pops him.
And there were many other moments like that. He's just, as he's going, yeah.
One of my favorite moments in it, just because there were lots of very knowing, we've seen versions of a lot of this stuff in a million mob movies. This just happens to be set in Gotham, so it has a slightly fantastic sheen. But the whole thing where technically that last showdown he has with Maroni, when Maroni's out, and of course Clancy Brown, everyone in that show, by the way, everyone in Penguin's amazing. Yeah. And I love Clancy Brown, even though least likely Italian mobster in the history of the world. He's just Clancy Brown. You go, I accept it because you're awesome. But anyway, the fact that he only succeeds because the guy has a heart attack, essentially, and then dies in front of him.
And my favorite bit
is where he gets right in his face going no, don't go yet.
Yeah.
I want you to know I beat you. Yeah. I beat you.
He's like, what the fuck? Damn it.
For him, it's like, that's more necessary. He's like, I know you're about to die, but I beat you. And then, of course, he goes out and takes credit, which, of course, is a perfect Oz thing. Like going, Maroni's not going to be bothering us anymore. And it was like, damn, he killed Sal Maroni. Nope, Sal Maroni's heart killed Sal Maroni. It's just so well done. And then, of course, this is one of those shows, I guarantee you they thought of the last image before they started writing.
Yeah. Oh my God.
They had to sit there going finally, he is realized as Penguin. He is at the top of Gotham, but right over, boom, bat signal. I'm like, they have to have thought of that.
Yes. Ugh. And when that happened, it was like, of course. Yes. Of course, that's what it is. Because everybody was saying, after that episode before, when Sophia, blows up that neighborhood.
Yeah. He's like, Batman.
Well, now the Batman has to show up, right?
Yeah. I'm surprised he hasn't anyway. With especially like when all the gang leaders show up to meet with Oz. I'm like going, you think that Batman doesn't know that every gang leader is going to a particular junkyard or something like?
Right.
He would have been there in the shadow.
Yeah. So we see the beginnings of it, and finally, although that seems like it's a huge jump forward, though, right? That last scene where he's got the tuxedo, he's got a different apartment and
I mean,
everything.
yeah,
Is it the same
not a
apartment? It's not the same
huge jump
apartment, is
forward.
it?
No, it's a different one. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's up on top.
So Gordon couldn't just then be contacting Batman about the explosion, right?
No,
That's got to just be an incidental thing that it just happened.
it's an incidental thing. I don't think that's literally, other than he feels he is on top of Gotham, and then of course there's a reminder. No, there's someone who's going to be taking you down because you're not. You're one of the bad guys there. And
it was a pretty, like you say, it was a pretty surprising move that they went for the very first episode. There's one mention of him on TV, I think, is there's a mention.
Yeah, I think it is literally them tying into the.
He's never mentioned again.
It's like, he's not. I was.
They could have very easily thrown him in there, like, what do you think the Batman's going to save you, or something?
Yeah, I kind of expected that people are going like, look, it's a different city out there. It's like some of my dudes got taken down last night trying to pass that drug off. It's like, the cops got him. No, it wasn't the cops.
No, the other guy.
You could have literally just done something like that.
Right.
They didn't. So Batman's been busy elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe he went out of town to chase down the hottie that split off from him at the end of the movie.
And maybe they'll drop an explanation about where he's been.
They might.
Whatever.
And I'm sure there's a lot of other crime going on in Gotham, even during what was happening in the Penguin.
I suppose if they had done what you mentioned, like if they had dropped in and like, the other guy, he showed up and ruined this one deal we tried.
Yeah,
it probably would have been more. Maybe that would have been like too tantalizing. Like, oh, could you not?
Yeah,
maybe show.
But
something?
People know that they're not going to get Robert Pattinson in an episode of the show, even though Colin Farrell, of course, is the man who played in the film, and he's a big time star.
Well, and Matt Reeves said in one of these little interviews they're doing that it wasn't, at least the way he tells it, it wasn't because of anything like that. It was just that narratively they decided it didn't make sense, that it was going to be something where he would overpower and overshadow everything else.
It's true. Batman shows up, it becomes a Batman story, even if it's just one episode. But I wouldn't have complained. But still, the show is so goddamn good. It's so goddamn good that I kind of do hope that the current, James Gunn and company go, Matt, as long as you want to keep doing those,
please,
we're going to have our own Batman, but you keep doing yours because that stuff's good.
Keep it going, yeah.
And I think people can handle 2 simultaneous Batman projects. Mm-hmm. I think they won't go, but Robert Pattinson isn't. Who's this guy?
Well, especially as you pointed out a couple episodes ago, I think they're going to be so distinctly different from each other that's one of the reasons why it's going to work.
Well, Gunn is creating a comic book film universe unabashed, whereas Matt Reeves is still kind of doing no, this is the respectable adults version. Here you go. We're not going to have that kind of craziness. Don't expect to see Killer Moth in this, okay? We're not going to have that dude.
And like you were saying at the top of this discussion, I thought I had the same thought when it wrapped up. It was like, I don't think I want a season 2 of this because they've pretty much done what they set out to do. It's like, now we know who he is. What else?
And the story continues in the next movie.
And they can't trick us with trying to trick us into thinking he's empathetic, because he's not empathetic. I mean, I mean, he doesn't have empathy, is what I mean to say.
I think Colin Farrell loves playing the character, and I don't think, and I think Matt Reeves, after basically Max HBO went to him and said, "This was huge for us. How about a season 2?" And he's like, "Look, if I come up with a good story, yeah, maybe." But he's like, "You'll see the Penguin. He's going to be in the Batman part 2." What I would love is if they just keep making Batman movies, and in between we get us 1 season per character.
Speculative question. What are the villains, since assuming they're going to stick to their grounded version of the Batman mythos? We've gotten Penguin, we've gotten Riddler, we've seen Joker in that that post-credit series. Was it a cutscene that he appeared in?
Yes.
So we know the Joker's there, sort of. who else could they do that's not like
a lot of them.
Not like Clayface or
No, not like
any of
Clayface.
those.
I mean, a lot of the classic Batman villains, and even some of the later ones, they're kind of like Dick Tracy villains. In other words, not too many of them are crazy fantastical. Even when I mentioned Killer Moth, he's still just a guy who wears a moth helmet. It doesn't have to be literally a moth guy. They wouldn't have Man Bat or whatever, but Ra's al Ghul, which they did in Batman Begins, there is the Lazarus Pits, but maybe you just never mentioned that. It's like they say he's immortal. They could literally just do a toss-off line. But Ra's al Ghul, certainly they could do. And yeah, Scarecrow they could do Nolan did Scarecrow because that's just fear gas. It's
right.
like, okay, whatever. I can't think of anyone that they really.
Well, Nolan also did Two-Face. And I think it would be cool if they just tried to find some Batman villains that haven't been done in a film. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say Black Mask, but Black Mask actually got used for Birds of Prey, even though that's a separate cinematic universe. That's the Snyder, over there. But Black Mask is another good like crime boss kind of figure, but he's got they always just, every single one of them has a hang up with some sort of thing. And in his case, it's all these different masks. Mad Hatter, you do the Mad Hatter. He's never been, other than the TV show, the 60s TV show. There's a million. Yeah. There's a million they could do.
Who do you think, people? Let us know.
Yeah. What do you guys think?
What do you guys think?
Should they do? I love it. I always think of the classic, like 4 or 5, and they've all been done. And I'm interested to see what Matt Reeves would do, because he's slightly more willing to be comic booky than Nolan was. Maybe his Scarecrow would actually dress as a scarecrow instead of just putting a burlap sack on his head. Who knows? I don't know, but he is doing his own thing. Yeah. I know that over in the Gunverse, any of these characters that show up would probably be in a version of their costume. So I'm totally down for that.
And by the way, I was getting distracted earlier because I wanted to look up his name, the actor who played Vic Aguilar in the show, who, of course, his character dies at the end of the series. He's up. That means that actor's up for grabs in the DCU. He would have been anyways. This is a different universe. I think James Gunn needs to cast Renzi Feliz as the guy's name, because that guy is absolutely brilliant, tremendously talented actor.
He's absolutely great, and I've seen him in other stuff. I mean, yeah, he's definitely on his way up.
It would be great to see him playing a completely different role in the DCU.
Yeah, and actually,
who doesn't die?
I think again, Gunn will just hire whoever's right.